Alright, so we finally get cracking on the build for the Vaterra Ascender. This is something I was pumped to get. And received it, unboxed it, built it, all on the same day, should I say. Unfortunately, the editing, as always, takes a bit of time, so this is delayed a little bit. But it was built exact same day I purchased the kit. I couldn't wait any longer to jump on the build. Alright, so get all the parts to the side. Make sure we start with our bag A. I'm just going to clear off a spot here. Alright, so there's our bag A. You get our parts out. First thing we're going to be working on is the trans. Alright, so first off here, get all the hardware out. Get the thread lock out. And first thing first, we're going to screw in the motor plate to the one half of the trans casing. Get a little bit closer with the camera here so you can get a better look. Alright, so we're going to grease up our output shaft. And get our gears, spacer, bearing, and finish it off with an E-clip, which is in the other bag here. Sorry, did that off camera. So we snap that in place. Now onto our second output shaft. So we're going to thread in a grub screw. And get an E-clip on one end. Make sure it's secure. And then we can push our gears in through. Sorry, it was a pain to get that in there, but we got it in. So, alright, spacer. Focus, maybe not. Alright, so spacer's in, E-clip's there, throw in all our gearing, snap in our secondary E-clip to hold that together. Another spacer and bearings. Alright, so one more shaft that we need to build before we can throw that in, and there it is. Spacer, the gear, and another spacer. Throw that in our trans housing, output shaft, and we're good to close it off. Before we close it off, we're gonna mash some grease in there. Throw in the second half of the casing. We have a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 screws to hold that together. Alright, now on to the spur. Get that second bag open here. Here we have the retaining plate. You have the spur with the slipper pads. And the other retaining plate, spacer, spring, and finally the nut. Now we got our motor. Gonna add the motor spacer. 2 screws gets that into place. Throw on the pinion and we're ready to clean that up. Alright, now on to the drive shafts. So very similar to the axial ones. You have the yoke that goes into the plastic shaft that screws in from the inside. Locks that all up into place. Throw in the yoke. You get the end of the drive shaft. Put a drive pin in. And finally the pin retainer, which is just a little spring that slips up and over. Wiggle it into place. And you're done. So finish the other side up off camera. So we're just going to screw that on to the trans. The front shaft. The rear. And now onto the axles. Open our secondary bag. Get everything out. Lots of hardware, a spool. You guys know what I'm talking about. So as we did for our original drive shaft, we're going to be building the other one for the the axle, should I say. So we have the drive shaft as well as a yoke, drive pin into place, retainer, this one's a bearing. And this is a different piece or something different that I've not seen before here. This is going to go into, first off, I'm going to screw that in, lock that into place to the drive shaft, which is plastic. Throw that into the axle. And here, right into the yoke, or the output of the yoke, I'm going to screw in the bevel gear. And here, we have 2 spacers, 2 bearings. Pull that out of the bag here. Throw that into the axle. Butter it up nice and thick with grease. I just use regular marine stuff. Get the diff cover. You also have a little bracket at the bottom. Keep the scratching it too much. Slides off the rocks hopefully. 4 screws gets that done. Alright, and now to get the rest of the hardware out here, and we're going to finish off the upper or 4-link mount. Or I guess in this case, given it's a front axle, it's a 3-link mount with a panhard. Nonetheless, can be converted for 4-link if need be. Alright, so this other retainer piece is for the battery. Lets it pop up and down with the movement of the axle. And now for the CVDs. So just as we did with the drive shaft, yoke, drive pin, retainer. Puts that into place. Now I'm going to get the knuckle, throw in our bearings, push the CVD through. If we can ever get the right one there. Sorry, digging here. Alright, so finally we're in. Now we're going to screw the knuckle into the C-hub. And that's ready to be thrown into the axle. Line ourselves up, spin a little bit, and it should fall right into place. Screw on the outside, screw on the inside. There you go, sorry, a little bit blur. There, it's done. Now onto the steering links. Screw in a nut, and we're done. Next here, we're going to be building is the chassis itself. Just move away a little bit with the camera so you can get a better look at things. So this, if you haven't noticed, is a variable length chassis. So for this configuration, it'll be a 314 mm. So it's going to be the longest configuration we can do. Line ourselves up. Screw in the center plate where the trans connects to. It's going to lock us up. Get the rest of the plastic pieces in. So the front brace for the steering servo and the rear where the electronics should mount. Mash both halves in together, and 2 screws gets that done on one side. Onto the shock hoops. Those were the front. That screws right into the servo plate. I'll do the same on the other side, as well as the cross member piece. It's going to stiffen everything up. Right. 2 screws done. Now onto the rear, same as the front. We get one side in. Get the retainer piece, the cross member piece, and finally the other side of the shock hoops. So here, get the excess little bits off. This here will be the extension piece to the chassis, which allows us to mount the bumper. So we have 2 shorter ones up front and 2 longer ones in the back. Sorry, I had to put that last cross member piece in there first. Screw that in. Now 4 screws gets the trans and motor into place. Sorry, I'm missing some hardware here. Right, so like I was saying, 4 screws gets that into place. Locked in. So now let's thread the lead from the servo in. Pop that into place, and 4 screws gets us locked in. Alright, last one. And we're done with that. Now we're just going to screw in the little wire retaining clips. Throw our motor leads in there later. Now for the RX box. As you see later on, I'll pull that off. But for now, we're going to build everything as in the book. So I'm going to throw that RX box back there. Screw it in. Just going to fit the cover. Alright, worry about that later. Alright. Now on to adding the axles. Get our lower links, which share a spot with the shocks. Okay, so and get the upper link for the 3-link in the front. Now on to the shocks and the lower links. Long screw and a nut gets that secured. Same for the opposite side. And now onto the rear. So 2 lower links and the shocks as we did for the front. The only difference here is that the have 2 links at the top. Alright, so get those shocks in there with the link. Done and done. Same for the other side. So shock on the outside, link on the inside, if you hadn't noticed. Alright, so drive shaft first, get that into place, and then the upper link for the front axle. Screw that into the side of the chassis. Get the lower links in, fidget a little bit with the pin here, and that's what's going to hold it in place. First one wasn't too hard, it's the second link that was hard to line up here. Sorry, I pulled that up off camera here so I can get a better view. Okay, so once that pin is through, one grub screw holds that into place. Alright, so now that those bottoms are in, I'm able to secure the upper link. So snug everything up here. Finally for the shocks, so spacer, shock, and a screw. Right into the cross member piece, so no nuts needed on the opposite side. Now for the panhard, so we have the upper connection to the the left of the chassis, all the way down to the right of the axle. Secure that, free movement. Now onto the rear. You get the drive shaft in place, 2 lower links, retainer pin, push that into place. And again, as always, far side is the hardest to get through. We're in, and now our grub screw gets that locked in. Now the 2 upper links. You have to take a look at your manual if you're not going the stock configuration, but I did go with the 314mm. So as indicated in the manual, I'm just going to secure it here on the inside link, or sorry, inside hole, should I say. Now onto the shocks. Same on both sides. And the big bulk of the work is done. Now onto the little easy stuff. Sorry, so I'm going to get the bumper in place. So we have a long screw, 2 plastic spacers, and then that screws directly into the chassis. One on both sides. Very similar for the rear, less spacers, only 1 spacer for the back here. Right, dropping hardware everywhere. Alright, so finally what we're going to be doing is the rock sliders. So we have the 2 inner pieces for the rock slider. Get those somewhat lined up. And then the outer portion of it screws in. Same thing on the opposite side. Make sure everything's nice and snug. This hopefully is going to save the wear and tear on the body a bit. Now onto those nice wheels. Throw those on. Get our nut in place. And here for the battery tray. Just going to install it here to show you guys what it looks like, but this is for a shorty pack, so I'm going to modify that to get a full-size battery in there. Now for the rear electronics tray, which I will be using, screw that back there, move our leads around, and get the ESC in place. Again, this is just mock-up. I'm going to finish everything afterwards. I just want to make sure that we don't have to get any leads, or longer leads, should I say, extensions. But for now, we are done. all the big building is done. The rest of the stuff is just going to be tied into the electronics. So you can see here we got some good flex in the front with that 3-link. There's rock sliders. Really liking the look of those rims. Same with the axle. Nice and smooth. Alright, give you the top-down view. And you get a good look at it here. Very nice. I know I keep talking about the wheelbase, but a lot longer than most of the rigs I'm accustomed to, so it's going to be nice to see different performance on the trail. Flip it over so you can see underneath here. Yeah, solid aluminum links across the board. Plastic drive shafts, but the yokes are metal. So all in all, I think it's going to be a very trail-worthy rig. As always, you're going to have to put it to the test, and that's what I do best. So, we'll be back at it, hopefully with some trail footage soon. Guys, thanks for watching. Please thumbs up and subscribe.